Alright guys, hope you're all staying indoors and keeping yourself safe. Today I want to go over the Title Update 9 full patch notes. They've just been released. So to start with, the maintenance will be tomorrow as normal, April 21st, 9:30 AM CEST, 3:30 AM EDT and 12:30 AM PDT, and it's down for approximately 3 hours. And let's go over the patch notes. I've not seen these yet. I know of some of them because they were included in the initial patch notes that we got, but these I believe are the official patch notes, and they're probably going to include a lot more, so let's see what happens. So as you can see, the patch size from 8.5 to 9 is approximately 10 gigabytes for a fresh installation, 70 to 80 gigabytes. So the new features are the exotic reconfiguration. I've done a whole video on this, so I'd highly recommend you guys go and check that out. But essentially you can refigure exotics so that instead of changing just say like one core attribute, as you can see here on this Bullet King, you can actually refigure and change. It basically changes all of the attributes and with a high minimum roll so that you can get basically a higher roll on your exotics. Essentially that's what it's for. It also includes being able to upgrade level 30 to level 40 exotics as well. But yeah, I'd highly recommend you go check out my video on that one. I put it out a couple of days ago. So game balance, exotics, talents and named items. This is going to be interesting. Sawyer's knee pads reworked. Cannot be staggered by explosions. Increase total weapon damage by 3% each second you are not moving. Stacks up to 10 times, and stacks are lost when moving. So that's pretty significant. You can get up to 30% extra damage in 10 seconds, which in this game in cover is not a whole lot of time really. This exotic only provides defensive attributes and no brand bonus, so now has potential for high damage, and it makes it appealing to both red and blue builds. The developer comment is the old version didn't provide enough engaging gameplay. This should help with that. We then got Imperial Dynasty buff, reduced the cooldown to 35 seconds down from 40. Comment, this buff is to better compensate for the lack of brand bonus. I'm not sure how much 5 seconds is going to make a difference with Imperial Dynasty, but it is a buff and that's good news. Dodge City Gunslinger, reduced charge up time 30 seconds from 50 seconds. This buff is better to compensate for the lack of brand bonus. The Diamondback has been reworked, now grants all shots guaranteed crits for 5 seconds after hitting a mark. Developer comment, the Diamondback is underperforming and this change should make the bonus a bit more exciting. I do really like the Diamondback, so I may have to see what this is like after this update. Merciless and the Ruthless, we got a buff, explosion damage increased to 1200% up from 900%. Comment, explosion damage doesn't scale with crit stats, so boosted to compensate. Again, I don't actually have a Merciless or Ruthless. I've never been able to get one. I haven't really farmed for one, I'll have to say that, but I've never been able to get one, so I didn't know that that was underperforming, although I've seen that no one's really using it. Lady Death no longer enhances turret skills. Okay, Bullet King base damage is now the same as the non-exotic LMG version. I'm still trying to get the Bullet King. Exotic attribute roll quality. All exotics will now roll at the highest possible minimum roll regardless of the difficulty they are obtained in. Exotic items can still roll higher than the minimum, but minimum rolls are now higher. So overall, this was a little bit confusing. So overall, no matter what difficulty you are in, there is a base high minimum roll regardless of what you're playing for exotics now. So let's just say 60%. I still think there's tiers after that, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that. But from what I can tell, the only thing that's really different between exotics now is that you've got much more chance of getting exotics on the higher difficulty. Although, and this is something I may come back to in a future video, that doesn't quite apply for heroics because there is something that changes with heroics where when you go into heroics, essentially what happens is all of the exotics go into the loot pool as opposed to the ones you are targeting, meaning that when an exotic actually drops, the chances of it being the one that you want, the one that you're trying to farm for, because that's the targeted loot you're going for, is actually less than if you were to go and say something like challenging and have an exotic drop where it's guaranteed. Talents. So we got Tag Team Rework. The last enemy you have damaged with a skill is marked. Dealing weapon damage to that enemy consumes the mark to reduce active cooldowns by 6 seconds. The cooldown is 4 seconds. Does not consume mark if no skills on cooldown. Reassign buff. Killing an enemy adds 1 round of random special ammo into your sidearm. Reduce cooldown to 15 seconds. Tamper Proof is reworked. Enemies that walk within 3 meters of your hive, turret, or remote post are shocked. Time is 2 seconds. Increase cooldown per skill to 10 seconds, up from 5 seconds. Empathetic Resolve. Repairing an ally increases their total weapon and skill damage by 3 to 15% for 20 seconds, up from 10 seconds, and 1% to 7% if self. Comment: currently it's difficult to keep a high uptime in a 4-man contest as non-tank players try to be as safe as possible and NPCs have higher lethality, so chip damage is less frequent. Well, maybe you should make chip damage more frequent, is what I would say. Creeping Death. When you apply a status effect, it also applies to all the enemies within 8 meters, up from 5 meters of your target. Reduce cooldown to 15 seconds, down from 20. Overcharge talents now properly state that they don't work in PvP. And let's get on to these here. So, named items. Contractor Gloves. Damage to armor is lowered to 8%. I don't remember what it was, but I think it was 15? No, I think it was 10%. Or 13%, I can't remember, but it's certainly a nerf. Firm Handshake, status effects increased to 15%. I don't know if we need more status effects, I'll be honest. Ammo Dump now correctly rolls 2 additional attributes. Claws Out now correctly has a skill tier core attribute roll. Now correctly rolls an attribute in addition to the pistol damage and melee damage. Melee damage increased to 400%. Fox's Prayers down to out of cover lowered to 8%. So that was 15%, so that's been nerfed almost 50%. The Hollow Man damage to health lowered to 10%. Okay. Punch Drunk headshot damage increased to 20%. I think that was 12.8%. So it's gone up to 20%, which is, I believe, we knew that was going to happen anyway. And Send Off removed perfectly rooted talent. Okay. And then weapons, assault rifles increased maximum roll of damage to health to 21%. Players on Stadia will not see this display correctly and instead see an increase in damage to health on other weapon types. This is a UI issue only and we fix for the next client update. So assault rifles have seen an increase to the maximum damage to health they can get on them, which for the most part doesn't seem all that good, right? But when it comes to stuff like Warhounds or Heavies, this is actually quite good because the actual damage to Heavies and Warhounds is treated like health rather than armor. So you are getting that additional percentage to those particular types of enemies. So actually running something like an M1A, if it hasn't been nerfed, and I don't know if it has because I've not gone through this yet, but the M1A and something like an assault rifle is probably a good idea. Gear sets, True Patriot, white buff armor repair lowered to 2% to 2 to 3% once every second, or I think it's down from 3% to 2%. Main missions, Pentagon and DARPA Research Lab, lower difficulty to be more on par with other missions. I know a lot of people complaining about how difficult, certainly I think it was DARPA Research Labs was, so they've changed that. Liberty Island, lower difficulty to be more on par with other missions. Wall Street, reduced health and damage of the APC. Stranded Tanker, NPC composition has been adjusted. AI and NPC, signature weapons against named NPCs. Slightly increased damage signature weapons deal to named enemies. That's good because signature weapons are generally, I don't know, I don't really use them that much because I just feel like they're not powerful enough. So having an increase in damage, certainly to something like a named enemy where you're likely to use it, is good. Elite NPCs damaged against player skills. Reduced damage elite NPCs deal to player skills. That's very good as well. Although what I will say is that if it's not enough, skills that, you know, auto-target and, you know, where NPCs have line of sight are still going to get destroyed in 3 seconds. And, you know, let's hope that this damage reduction is applied to red bars who do take down skills very easily when they're in line of sight. Tank sprint speed, reduced sprint speed of tank archetype from hostile factions. NPC shotguns, reduced damage of all NPC shotguns, adjusted range of some NPC shotguns, including shotguns used by Black Tusk Russia. Status effects, reduced duration of poison and clean as napalm and snare when applied to players. So that's good. They've reduced the duration of poison, but they've also reduced the napalm and snare as well. So the fire damage, which is good, but they've not actually reduced the fire damage as an effect generally across the board. Special ammo signaling. Any NPC with special ammo has the same UI indication as from the special ammo directive. Examples of who this affects: outcasts who pick up special ammo from boxes deployed by their support archetype, bounties who spawn with special ammo. Rogue agents significantly reduce the armor of dynamically spawning rogue agents. To prevent this from being too large of a nerf in a 3 to 4 player co-op, rogue agent can spawn with an armor kit which can repair their armor up to 70%, slightly reduce the damage output of dynamically spawning rogue agents. So I didn't realize that rogue agents were such a big problem in the game. I've personally not found them that much of a problem. They're difficult, but I think they should be that way. What I have found is that they're not very rewarding. So that's something that they may need to address, or they're just going to make them easier, and thus, you know, it complements the rewards we're currently getting. I don't think it should work that way, but that's the way it's gone, it looks like. NPC buff allies ability change. Previously, certain bosses and bounties would magically overheal themselves and their fire team. This buff allies ability lacked clear messaging, so it's been replaced with a leader overheal ability. This is the same ability that Riker's leader archetype has. Once the boss leader is killed, all the friendlies lose their overheal. The UI indicator of pulsating circles inward outward in their nameplate signals when this ability is active, so some UI changes there. Loot and rewards. Increased power of dropped exotics to always be of the highest tier given the highest minimum rolls. Added Operation Dark Hours raid gear set, chest and backpack items to the general loot pool, making them available outside of Operation Dark Hours. Lowered number of exotic components awarded from exotic deconstruction to match the cost of exotic reconfiguring, and lowered conflict XP amount from PvP weekly projects to match the required XP for one conflict level. Then we move on to blueprints. Combined all skill mod blueprints of all different qualities into a single blueprint per skill. Scaling quality with that of the crafting bench. Added skill mod blueprints for the skills introduced in Warlords of New York. That's good. Although I will say as well with this is that I think skill mods generally drop too much in the loot pool at the moment, and I think they need to be toned down a little bit. Added blueprints from the general blueprints pool to its first weekly completion rewards of invaded missions. Added blueprints from the general blueprints pool to the rewards of daily projects. Skills. The sharpshooter's tactician skill base radius has been increased to 50 meters. That's quite a big way. Scoping is now enabled when using a shield skill. There is a lot of fixes here. I'm just trying to see if there's any here that I would need to really just go over. Fix an issue causing the Demolisher Firefly to sometimes target and destroy friendly decoys. Okay, I didn't know about that. I'm not going to go through all of these, guys. If you want to check out all of these fixes here, then please feel free to do it. But fix an issue causing the glass cannon gear sets to amplify all healing received. Didn't know that. There's a lot, it looks like, talent fixes here, among other stuff. There's a lot of fixes here, guys. So I'd highly recommend you go check those out. I'll leave a link to this patch notes down below anyway. So we've got some audio localization stuff, missions as well. This is all good, right? We want to see fixes like this all of the time. More fixes. Dark Zone fixed an issue causing agent nameplates to be visible at incorrect distances. So you can see that they've changed them now. That's fine. Fix an issue that caused player to become immobilized by riot foam. Fix an issue, fix an issue, fix an issue. So there's a lot of fixes here, but what I'm noticing, guys, is there is no nerf to the M1A that I can see, which I think is good news. I think that, because I think that's what everyone was concerned about. I think everyone was concerned that they were going to nerf the M1A, and in doing so, you know, we were going to lose the power fantasy, the very minimal amount of power fantasy we currently have. We were going to lose that, and that doesn't appear to be the case. It appears that they're actually keeping. They've made some buffs to assault rifles. They've made some buffs to some other stuff here. What they've done instead is they've nerfed some of the talents from named items that make like the M1A so strong and stuff like that. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this one, guys. Let me know what you think of all of this in the comments down below. We do have State of the Game tomorrow, which obviously I'm going to go over in detail, and I'll probably do a video on Thursday or Friday going over this, not in more detail, but at least talking about the stuff that they've done and whether I agree, disagree, what I liked, what I didn't like. Thanks very much for all of your support, guys, and until the next one, Epic out.